1945. An American soldier with a camera walks through a small town in the Philippines. The war just ended. He's looking for the people who fought back against the Japanese. He wants to take their pictures, tell their stories. Then he meets her. A woman, middle-aged, quiet, soft-spoken. She looks like somebody's mother, somebody's teacher. The soldier asks what she did during the war. She smiles, a gentle smile. Then she picks up a weapon, not a regular gun, a homemade shotgun from a gas pipe and nails. She shows him how she used it, how she killed Japanese soldiers, over 200 of them. The soldier's jaw drops. He takes her picture. That photo goes around the world, and people ask the same question. How did a school teacher kill 200 enemy soldiers? This is her story, and I promise you, by the end, you'll understand why the Japanese army was absolutely terrified of her. Her name was Nieves Fernandez. Before the war, she taught children in a small school in Tacloban. Math, reading, writing, history. She loved her job, loved her students, had a good, quiet life. Then December 8, 1941 happened, the day after Pearl Harbor. Japanese planes appeared in the sky over the Philippines. Bombs started falling. Within months, the entire country was under enemy control. Schools closed. The Japanese burned books, forced everyone to speak Japanese. Filipino culture was being erased, and Nieves watched it all happen. She saw soldiers beating people in the streets, saw families torn apart, saw her neighbors executed for no reason. Her country was being destroyed right in front of her eyes. Most people stayed quiet. They had families. They wanted to survive. But something inside Nieves snapped. She made a decision. She would not accept this. She would not bow down. She would fight back. But there was a problem, a big problem. She was a school teacher. She had never fired a gun, never been in a fight, had no weapons, no soldiers, no training. All she had was anger and intelligence and a refusal to give up. So she started talking to people, quietly, secretly, finding men who felt the same way, who wanted to fight back but didn't know how. Farmers who lost their land, fishermen who lost their boats, young men who lost their future. One by one, they came to her. Eventually, she had 110 men ready to fight. But they had nothing to fight with, 0 weapons. The Japanese controlled everything, every gun, every bullet, every knife. If you were caught with a weapon, you were killed on the spot. Most people would have given up right there. You can't fight an army with empty hands. But Nieves was a teacher. She knew how to solve problems, how to learn new things. So she went to work. She studied chemistry, studied metals, studied how guns work. She experimented, failed, tried again, failed again, kept trying. And finally, she figured it out. Homemade shotguns made of gas pipes, the kind of pipes you find in any town. She used nails as bullets, crude explosives to fire them. They were ugly weapons, rough, simple, but at close range, they were deadly. And she didn't just make one, she taught all her men how to make them. Within weeks, all 110 fighters had weapons. But having a weapon doesn't make you a soldier. Her men were farmers and fishermen. They didn't know how to fight. So Nieves trained them herself. Close combat, how to ambush, how to disappear into the jungle, hit hard, hit fast, then vanish before the enemy can fight back. Remember, she had never been a soldier either, but she was smart. She learned, she adapted, and she taught her men everything she figured out. At first, some of them didn't like taking orders from a woman. This was the 1940s. Women weren't supposed to be warriors. But Nieves didn't care what they thought. She proved herself the only way that matters. She led from the front. She didn't send her men into danger while she stayed safe in the back. She fought beside them, risked her life beside them, and when they saw her courage, they followed her. Because real leadership isn't about being male or female, it's about courage. The first test came on a jungle road. A Japanese patrol, 12 soldiers armed with real military weapons, trained, professional, confident. They were walking down the road, joking, relaxed. They had no idea anyone was watching. Nieves and 20 of her fighters hid in the jungle beside the road, waiting, silent, barely breathing. The Japanese came closer. 50 yards, 30 yards, 20 yards, 10 yards. Nieves gave the signal. 20 homemade shotguns fired at once. At close range, they were devastating. The battle lasted 30 seconds. All 12 Japanese soldiers were dead. 0 Filipinos were hurt. They grabbed the Japanese weapons and disappeared into the jungle before anyone could come. The ambush was perfect. Word spread fast. A few days later, another ambush, then another. Japanese soldiers started dying. 5 here, 8 there. A supply truck destroyed, a radio station attacked, an ammunition depot burned to the ground. And every time, the same group, led by the same commander, a woman. The Japanese military couldn't believe it. A woman was defeating their soldiers with homemade weapons? It was embarrassing, humiliating, unacceptable. They created a wanted poster, Nieves Fernandez, dead or alive, reward 10,000 pesos. That was a fortune, enough money to live comfortably for years, enough to make anyone betray her. They sent patrols to hunt her, hired spies to find her, offered rewards to anyone who would talk. But nobody betrayed Nieves. The entire community protected her. When Japanese patrols came near, villagers warned her. When spies showed up, locals identified them. The people loved her. She was fighting for them, protecting them. They would never give her up. The Japanese sent their best trackers. They died in ambushes. They sent counter-guerrilla units. Those soldiers disappeared into the jungle and never came back. They tried everything. Nothing worked. Months passed, then years. The 10,000 peso reward was never collected because you can't catch a ghost. And Nieves Fernandez had become a ghost that the Japanese couldn't find. By the time the war ended, she had killed over 200 Japanese soldiers. 200! Think about that. A schoolteacher who had never touched a gun before the war. Over 200 confirmed kills. But she never bragged about it, never celebrated it. To her, it was just what needed to be done. Her country was occupied. Her people were suffering. She did what she had to do. October 1944. General MacArthur returned to the Philippines just like he promised. American forces landed on the beaches. They started pushing the Japanese back. Liberation was finally coming. As American soldiers moved through Tacloban, they started meeting the local guerrilla fighters. They expected to find untrained civilians hiding in the jungle. Instead, they found organized military units, disciplined fighters who knew what they were doing. And they met Nieves Fernandez. The Americans were shocked. This quiet, middle-aged woman, she's a guerrilla commander? She killed 200 enemy soldiers? They didn't believe it at first, but then they checked Japanese military records. Her name was on their most wanted list. The stories were all true. An American photographer asked if he could take her picture, document the resistance, show people back home what Filipinos did to win their freedom. Nieves agreed. She pulled out her homemade shotgun, the crude weapon made from a gas pipe. She used a dummy to demonstrate exactly how she killed Japanese soldiers at close range. The photographer took the picture. That photo went around the world. America saw it, Europe saw it. everyone saw a Filipino woman who refused to surrender, who built weapons from nothing, who defeated an army with courage and intelligence. The photo became famous, a symbol of resistance, proof that regular people can fight back against impossible odds, proof that heroes don't always look like you expect. But when the war ended, Nieves didn't want fame, didn't want glory, didn't want to be celebrated as a hero. She wanted to go back to her old life. So that's exactly what she did. She went back to teaching, back to her classroom, back to teaching children math and reading and history. The war was over. Her country was free. Now it was time to rebuild. Time to give those children a future worth living in. She rarely talked about the war. When people asked, she gave short answers and changed the subject. She didn't see herself as special, just someone who did what needed to be done. But here's what makes her story even more important. Nieves Fernandez wasn't the only Filipino woman who fought. There were thousands of them. Thousands of women who resisted the occupation. Some were spies who gathered intelligence. Some were medics who saved lives. Some were supply runners who brought food and ammunition through enemy lines. Some operated radios and coordinated attacks. Some recruited new fighters. And yes, some were combat soldiers who killed enemy troops. But after the war, most of these women were forgotten. In 1946, the U.S. government passed laws denying benefits to Filipino veterans, especially women. Their sacrifices were ignored. Their stories were erased from history. For decades, almost nobody knew about Nieves Fernandez. Almost nobody knew about the thousands of Filipino women who fought. Their incredible courage was forgotten. But slowly, finally, people are learning the truth. Books are being written, documentaries are being made, memorials are being built, and Nieves Fernandez is becoming the symbol she always deserved to be. A symbol that you don't need military training to defend what's right, that you don't need to be a man to be a warrior, that you don't need an army's weapons to defeat an army. You just need courage, intelligence, creativity, and an absolute refusal to give up. Think about what she accomplished. She was a school teacher with no military background. She built an army from nothing. She invented weapons from gas pipes. She trained men to fight. She led them into battle from the front lines. She survived with a massive bounty on her head. She killed 200 enemy soldiers. And when it was all over, she went back to teaching children. That's not just impressive, that's legendary. Her story teaches us something important, something we all need to remember. You're never too small to make a difference, never too weak, never too unlikely. When the world needs heroes, heroes rise from the most unexpected places. Sometimes they're soldiers, sometimes they're farmers, sometimes they're fishermen, and sometimes they're school teachers who refuse to surrender. The Japanese army had tanks and planes and thousands of soldiers. They had the best weapons in the world. They conquered entire countries, but they couldn't defeat one school teacher with homemade weapons and unbreakable courage. Because weapons don't win wars. Courage wins wars. Intelligence wins wars. The refusal to give up wins wars. And Nieves Fernandez had all three. So the next time you think you're too ordinary to do something extraordinary, remember her. Remember the school teacher who became a warrior, the woman who scared an entire army, the hero who went back to teaching when the fighting was done. Remember Nieves Fernandez, the teacher who killed 200 Japanese soldiers, the inventor who built weapons from gas pipes, the commander who led 110 men from the front lines, the ghost who could never be caught, the legend who just wanted to teach children. Her country needed her, so she became what her country needed, and when her country didn't need her anymore, she went back to being a teacher. That's what real heroes do. They rise when called, they fight when needed, and when the fighting is over, they go back to building the world they fought to save. If you're inspired by her story, share it. Tell people about Nieves Fernandez because for 80 years her story was forgotten. Let's make sure it's never forgotten again.